Right now on Morning News Now, Donald Trump called it a sad day for America. This morning, the former president is now a three-time criminal defendant after pleading not guilty to charges he tried to overturn the 2020 election. Now, Trump is lashing out, claiming this is all election interference. We have team coverage on the historic arraignment and how it's dividing the nation. Also this morning, tragedy at the southern border. Two bodies were found floating in the Rio Grande. One of them said to be stuck in the controversial barriers meant to keep migrants out of Texas. The conflicting reports now raising tensions with the Mexican government. Plus, a pill problem that could impact millions of women. This morning, the FDA is sounding the alarm about a batch of birth control pills that might be less effective. More on the recall and what doctors want you to know. And quiet on the set today. Hollywood writers and major studios are set to resume talks for the first time since the start of an industry-stopping strike. This as actors sound off about waivers allowing some productions to keep rolling. The debate that's causing drama behind the scenes. That's a good conversation we'll get into a little bit later. Certainly a talker while we all wonder what's going to happen there.
Exactly. While we sit and wait with those two strikes going on simultaneously. Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Friday. I'm Joe Fryer.
Yeah, we made it to the end of the week. I'm Savannah Sellers. We're going to get started this morning with former President Donald Trump back in court for his third arraignment this year.
Trump pleaded not guilty yesterday to 4 federal charges tied to his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential results. The former president denies any wrongdoing and had this to say about the case after the hearing.
This is the persecution of the person that's leading by very, very substantial numbers in the Republican primary and leading Biden by a lot. So if you can't beat him, you persecute him or you prosecute him.
Trump was allowed to leave without paying any bail and is expected to be back on the campaign trail this weekend. Despite the legal battles he's facing, Trump continues to lead in the polls for the Republican nomination for the 2024 presidential election. Our team is here to break it all down for us. We're going to start with NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney, along with legal analyst Danny Savallo. So, Ken, let's start with you. The arraignment itself was pretty straightforward, despite the fact that it was a former president there. There were some differences here compared with the 2 previous arraignments that we've seen this year. Walk us through what happened in the courtroom and who was there in attendance.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. That's right. Among the 110 people inside that Washington, D.C. courtroom were some of the Capitol police officers whose lives were so deeply affected by the violence on January 6th, and also some of the federal judges who work in that building who have sentenced some of the violent January 6th defendants. But it was really a tense and sober atmosphere, I would say, at this arraignment yesterday, which struck me as quite different from the one down in Miami, where the magistrate in Miami was making jokes and it was pretty lighthearted, and Donald Trump did not utter a word at that Miami indictment. Yesterday, he was grilled by Magistrate Mosquito asked the same standard questions that any criminal defendant would be asked to state his name, his date of birth, and then she went through the charges against him and the maximum penalties, some of which are 20 years on each count. That actually won't be the potential sentence in that case. And then she imposed a series of conditions related to his release, including, she said, the most important one was that he not commit a crime while free. And that was a standard instruction to a defendant. But what was unusual was she added that she reminded Mr. Trump that it was illegal to intimidate or attempt to bribe a witness or a juror in the case, which struck a lot of legal experts as an interesting admonition. One thing that really emerged, though, from this hearing is that there's going to be a big fight about how quickly this case can go to trial, guys.
Well, Ken just said it, Danny. Let's bring you in, our own legal expert. How did that particular warning strike you, especially with how much we do hear from the former president on the campaign trail at events, on his own Truth Social platform? What'd you make of that?
When defense attorneys advise their clients, even before an appearance like an arraignment, which is supposed to be pretty straightforward, I've learned over the years to expect anything. And I'm talking about an arraignment where I could show you the federal bench book that judges use. It literally has a script with some of the questions that we heard yesterday. And even with that script, as we've seen in Mar-a-Lago with the magistrate, yesterday with the magistrate in D.C., Judges vary from the script, so the client should be ready to answer random questions and balance, of course, the Fifth Amendment. But these questions are pretty straightforward. What's your date of birth? Do you have a lawyer? Do you understand the English language? How far did you go in school? But judges sometimes go off script, like this judge apparently did. I think this is the admonition essentially is to not commit crimes, and adding that you don't intimidate witnesses. That's another crime. So, I mean, it's just redundant warnings, and it's probably a prudent course because as a judge, a magistrate especially, you don't want to be issuing your own gag order right there from the bench. You're basically telling him something he's supposed to do anyway, and you don't need to worry because the government, if they see him intimidating witnesses, they'll bring it to the judge's attention. Judge doesn't need to worry about it.
So, Ken, the judge did schedule a date for a follow-up hearing. What can we expect when that happens? Is that when we'll learn about a trial date, or at least the first attempt to schedule a trial date?
The first attempt, that's right, Joe. She scheduled it for August 28th, and the actual judge in the case, Tanya Chutkan, had imposed through this magistrate an order that each side write briefs about what they think the potential schedule could be in this case. And it was very clear that the prosecution wants to get this case to trial. Thomas Windham, the lead prosecutor, stood up and said, we believe a speedy trial is appropriate here. And John Lauro, Donald Trump's lead lawyer, immediately began raising concerns about the volume of discovery and the length of time that the government has had to investigate this case. And when given a choice of 3 dates, John Lauro picked the furthest one out, August 28th, as opposed to August 21st. So it's very clear that's going to be the game here. Donald Trump wants to delay this trial potentially until after the November election, and the prosecutors want to move it forward as quickly as possible. And now it's going to be really up to this judge to decide how quickly this case can go to trial. Her name is Tanya Chutkan. She was appointed by Barack Obama, and she has ruled against Donald Trump in the past, guys.
Danny, our viewers may notice that they're not seeing anything from actually inside this courtroom. We're saying details like a reporter in the room noted that XYZ happened. That's because this is this federal trial. There's no cameras. There's no audio in there. We've already heard from Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters calling for this trial to be made public. But remind us why it is that that is not the case in a federal courtroom. And then also, is there any chance that that could change?
Yeah, a lot of folks think of federal courts as a place where there will never, ever, ever be video footage or a video feed. And that's largely been true. But about 10 years ago, the federal courts had a pilot program to actually test video, but only in civil cases. The interesting thing is, after that pilot program ended, 3 judicial districts kept video in some civil cases, including the District of Guam, of all places. So there is precedent for video in federal courtrooms, not necessarily criminal cases. But the point is that what we always thought of as a complete ban on video in federal courthouses may not be as hardcore of a ban as we think. We may see a loosening of those rules sometime, maybe not in the immediate future, but distant future.
All right, Ken Delaney and Danny Savalos, thank you both for kicking us off this hour.
Now let's bring in NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin. Julie, good morning. So we always want to hear from you. What are you hearing from lawmakers on Capitol Hill in response to this yesterday?
Good morning, Savannah and Joe. Well, obviously by now we know that lawmakers are not in Washington, but even back home, they're being asked about what they thought about this arraignment yesterday, and the answers probably won't surprise you. Take a listen to what House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said yesterday. He got a little bit into a combative exchange with some reporters who kept pressing him on this issue. Watch.
I didn't see what happened today. I've been in meetings all day, but the one thing I do know is it really begins to feel like it's a two-justice system. So stop using government to go after people who politically disagree with you. That is wrong, and that should stop now.
So one reporter actually pressed McCarthy on comments that he made right after January 6th. You'll remember that moment on the House floor when he was criticizing the former president, saying that he was in part responsible for the riots on that day. Fast forward to now, and he's on the brink of announcing a potential impeachment inquiry into the current president, and certainly using his political capital to direct Republicans to uncover what they can about the president's gun and steer their investigation into that direction. We also heard from Elise Stefanik, McCarthy's number 3, who released a statement saying, quote, the unconstitutional and unprecedented arrest of President Donald J. Trump is truly a chilling chapter in Joe Biden's weaponization of the Department of Justice against his leading political opponent. She receives calls from President Trump himself. Often, she's certainly one of his allies in Congress. We also heard from Democrats, Congressman Brendan Boyle, who actually criticized Attorney General Merrick Garland for what he says was a slow walk of getting a special counsel appointed to this case. He thanked Speaker Pelosi for creating the January 6th committee to take care of this investigation. And Speaker Pelosi also speaking out, saying, quote, the courageous members of the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack knew the evidence and they knew the law. The committee's patriotic work laid the foundation to this historic moment. We have not heard, though, from Senate Republican leadership, and that includes Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Julie, also you had some reporting yesterday on 3 officers who defended the Capitol on January 6th. They attended Trump's arraignment. What was their reaction?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Officer Harry Dunn, former Staff Sergeant Aquilino Ganell, who was actually injured on January 6th, and he ended up leaving the force altogether, not being able to heal from the mental trauma of that day, as well as Officer Daniel Hodges. He was the Metro PD, the D.C. Police Department officer, and all 3 of them have attended each January 6th committee hearing that was held on Capitol Hill. They attended various trials of defendants who were charged for rioting on that day. Here's what Harry Dunn had to say after he walked out of the courtroom. This is really powerful. Watch.
Definitely was emotional, definitely was intense. At one point, I looked down, my watch started going off. I looked at my heart rate. It was over 100 beats a minute. So surreal, but definitely needed along the way for what we've been fighting for all along is accountability and justice.
Savannah, I was texting with the officers after they attended the arraignment. They were, of course, emotional and tired, but they told me that they are hoping to attend every single trial in this hearing. They really want to see it down to the finish line if they can.
Julie Sirkin, thank you so much for your reporting this morning.
Let's now bring in our senior political editor, Mark Murray. So, Mark, we're starting to see some polling from the presidential race after this latest indictment was revealed. Trump's position, no surprise, is the GOP presidential frontrunner, showing no signs of faltering, according to a recent Reuters Ipsos poll. We have been talking a lot about his strength among GOP rivals. What does this tell us now?
This tells us that he still enjoys a commanding lead. And Joe, you're exactly right. This poll, but from Reuters Ipsos, was conducted right in the middle of the news of the indictment that ended up occurring. And it's consistent with what other polls have shown, with Donald Trump with a 30-point or more national lead over his rivals. There's also a new New York Times Siena poll of Iowa that shows Donald Trump with more than a 20-point lead in that first contest for the Iowa caucuses. But I just want to go back to that Reuters Ipsos poll, because it asks another question. If Donald Trump is convicted of a felony crime, would you still vote for him? 35% of Republican primary voters said, yes, I will still vote for him. 45% say no. But a big caveat on that. The first Iowa contest is less than 6 months from now, then followed by New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. And there is kind of a question on when the trials for Donald Trump would end up taking place. And if they occur well after those first primaries and even after Super Tuesday, those kind of numbers that we end up seeing from that poll could very well change if Donald Trump has a commanding lead in the Republican delegate race.
So we know that many of Trump's GOP rivals so far have been reluctant to go on the attack over these indictments. Why do you think that is? And do you think some candidates may change their strategy given just how far behind they are in the polls?
Yeah, Joe, I think the biggest underreported story right now is just the kid gloves that the Republican field has gone, not only after Donald Trump was indicted 1 time, 2 times, but now 3 times. And, one explanation could be that this is simply where Republican primary voters are. Polls have shown that 7 in 10 Republicans say they want to stand behind Donald Trump. 7 in 10 Republicans say that Donald Trump committed no wrongdoing. And so it might very well be that these Republican rivals are just reacting to where the Republican electorate is on these charges so far.
You know, Trump also appears to be well ahead of the other Republicans when it comes to small donations. That's according to the fundraising data from WinRed. Tell us more about what we're learning from those small donations.
Yeah, and Joe, small donations are important because if you are giving a political candidate, Democrat or Republican, $20, $30 a month, you can continue to do that. And that goes into the candidate's coffers, as opposed to one very wealthy donor writing one $5,000 or $6,000 check, and then you're maxed out. And what we've actually seen from Donald Trump is that his ability to raise money with small donors outpaces the rest of the field. And Joe, it's also important to note that Donald Trump's small dollar donations we have seen with the same WinRed data have come after his previous indictments and arraignments. And so these have been catalysts for him to be able to raise money. We've both seen all the emails so far on him in this latest indictment.
All right, Mark, breaking it down for us. Thank you so much.
Well, even before this week's historic indictment, former President Trump already had mounting legal troubles, as Mark just referenced there. This map outlines some of them. It includes cases in New York and Florida, where he's already been indicted. And then in Georgia, prosecutors could be on the verge of charging the former president as well. Well, if you're feeling like it's getting a little hard to keep track of, you are not the only one. So here's NBC News correspondent Noah Pransky with a full breakdown.
Let's cut through all the noise on the Trump indictments and sort out what charges he faces from each state. First, New York. The charge, falsifying business records to conceal another crime. A grand jury made up of 23 Manhattan residents chosen at random indicted the former president for his alleged involvement in hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels in 2016, then concealing it to prevent the news from damaging his presidential campaign. Falsification is usually a misdemeanor crime, but Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg elevated it to a felony because he says it was done to cover up other crimes. In this case, state and federal election laws in order to deceive American voters. Trump and his attorneys denied the accusations.
There were no facts in there. I mean, normally in an indictment, you have alleged facts.
Then came Florida, the documents case. Among the criminal charges, conspiring to obstruct justice. It was federal prosecutors this time with a hefty, detailed filing alleging the former president hoarded classified documents containing national military and nuclear secrets, shared them with friends who had no security clearance, then conspired to hide and conceal some of them from a federal grand jury. The former president again denied the charges.
The baseless indictment of me by the Biden administration's weaponized Department of Injustice will go down as among the most horrific abuses of power in the history of our country.
Last week, prosecutors added additional charges to the Florida case, including an accusation that Trump tried to alter, destroy, mutilate, or conceal evidence by allegedly asking for security video to be deleted after investigators requested it. Then indictment number 3 came out of Washington, D.C. Tuesday, and it may be the most serious one yet. It's been described as the January 6th case, but it's really about the entire period after the 2020 election. Criminal charges include conspiracy to defraud the United States. Outside counsel Jack Smith wrote in a scathing indictment, the purpose of the conspiracy was to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims of election fraud. He went on with great detail to describe how the former president allegedly deliberately disregarded the truth, was determined to stay in power, and developed criminal plans to defeat the federal government. Trump called the indictment fake, and his attorneys have suggested his actions were protected by the Constitution. Oh yeah, there's also that Georgia investigation where the Fulton County District Attorney says to expect a 4th indictment no later than September 1st. Prosecutors have said that the recommendations from the grand jury made up of 23 Georgians relate to criminal interference in the administration of Georgia's 2020 general election. Remember that Trump call to Georgia Secretary of State Brett Raffensperger, seemingly asking him to change the vote count?
I just want to find 11,780 votes.
Trump has denied wrongdoing and any pressure campaign in Georgia and called this investigation as well a political witch hunt. One thing we do know for sure is that the Constitution does not prohibit an indicted candidate from running for president, or even a convicted one. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
Some summer storms are making their way across the country this weekend.
There's something we've unfortunately been hearing all summer. Angie Lassman joins us now in studio to let us know if they're headed your way. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Finally Friday, but yes, the unsettled weather is sticking with us, at least in some spots across the country for the weekend. So here's what we're dealing with right now. Those flood alerts are up in parts of the plains, as well as parts of the Midwest and stretching down into the Southeast. We even have a few of these flood alerts in parts of the New England area. The flood watches are mainly what you're seeing. That's that bright green, but you see why, especially stretching from Jefferson Jefferson City to Birmingham. We've had a really active 24 to even 36 hours there. Ample amounts of rain working through, and we still have some of those thunderstorms working through that same area right now. Some thunderstorms have emerged out of the Rockies, too, and are stretched across parts of the Central Plains. And we're kind of just busy across parts of the East Coast through today. Now, as we look into the afternoon hours, we could see some stronger storms developing in some of those spots. But the good news, especially for the East Coast, is we'll see mainly quieter conditions as we head into tomorrow. So your Saturday looks a lot better than your Friday, but you'll want to have that umbrella handy at least for the next 24 hours. If you live in parts of the plains tomorrow, not as good of news for you folks. We'll still see that severe risk for parts of the Central Plains, and we'll also have the heavy rain in the forecast for some of that flooding concern. And you'll notice just how much rain we're expecting. Anywhere from an inch to maybe 2 inches, even as high as 3 inches. The highest amounts are going to be centered across parts of the northern plains, and that goes through Saturday. I mentioned the severe storms that we could see, and today it's mainly focused into parts of the northeast. We'll also see the plains and stretching down into parts of the southeast. By tomorrow, that slight risk will shift, centered really over Kansas City to Scott City and into parts of Springfield, into Missouri. We'll see that too. And then by Sunday, heads up for the Midwest. Places like Chicago, Fort Wayne, Indianapolis, stretching down to Nashville, you could see some of those stronger storms. And if we're looking ahead to Monday, that's when we'll see that activity start to work into parts of the Northeast. But of course, the heat, guys, it sticks around, same spots, and you can see why those triple-digit temperatures are going to stick around with us. It's brutal there. There's no end in sight either.
I love how you didn't want to talk about Monday because it's Friday. We don't want to think about Monday yet.
It's Monday.
All right. Thanks, Angie.
Thank
Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, pest control. A tiny fly causing big problems for farmers in California. We're going to explain why and the efforts to now stop them.
First, though, after the break, he's already behind bars. Now, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is facing the prospect of more prison time this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are learning that a Biden administration policy restricting asylum at the southern border will continue for now. An appeals court temporarily suspended a lower court ruling that found the policy illegal. It makes it difficult for people to be granted asylum unless they first apply online or seek protection in a country they're traveling through. It's a major win for the Biden administration. The lower court had ordered that the policy end by next Monday, but the government argued the policy should remain in use while the larger court battles surrounding its legality play out.
Tensions are escalating along the southern border between Mexico and Texas after 2 bodies were found in the Rio Grande. One was stuck in that floating barrier Texas installed along the river this summer. NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley has more.
We're here in Arizona, where border officials in the Tucson sector say they're now seeing more than 1,000 migrants cross a day. That makes this the busiest sector of the entire U.S. border. Now, much of the focus on immigration right now is still on Texas, as there's a debate there over whether or not the buoys put in place by Texas Governor Greg Abbott led to the death of 2 migrants who recently drowned in the Rio Grande River. Here in Arizona, officials tell us that because of those tighter border restrictions, they're seeing more migrants, including families with young children, take their lives into their hands to brave dangerous elements, the heat and the rough terrain, to come here into Arizona. Here's what we learned. Tragedy in Texas, 2 migrants dying in the Rio Grande, and now a dispute over where it happened. Mexico says a body was found stuck in one of these controversial floating barriers Texas installed to stop illegal border crossings. Buoys the Biden administration is suing to remove, citing a danger to migrants. But Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the Mexican government is flat out wrong. Preliminary information points to the drowning occurring before the body was even near the barriers. Meanwhile, in Arizona, the crisis getting worse. With border restrictions tightening in Texas, officials here in Arizona say Tucson is now the busiest sector, with over 1,000 migrants crossing here a day. With the Border Patrol in Nogales, we come across a group of mothers and children in the sweltering heat. This mother and son tell us they have been sleeping in the mountains and walking until they were exhausted.
What did you have for food and water?
Nothing, she says. We are hungry.
It is a lot busier.
Agent Alejandro Alverde tells us there's a significant rise in families.
Family units
people as young as, 1-year-old kids.
While the Border Patrol Union argues migrant numbers are high because of Biden administration border policies.
If you don't have consequences and you don't have real policies to stop that, it's never going to end.
And a growing flashpoint over 1,000 miles away in New York City. Hundreds of migrants sleeping on Midtown Manhattan sidewalks outside the Roosevelt Hotel, now a migrant shelter and intake center. Officials say arriving migrants will cost the city over $4 billion. The mayor pleading for federal help.
We need help, and it's not going to get any better. From this moment on, it's downhill. There is no more room.
Arizona border officials say that they are continually using helicopters to go out into the mountains here to rescue migrants, many of whom think they can make it and then end up dehydrated or injured. And sometimes they find them after it's too late to save their lives.
Julia Ainsley, thank you.
Well, jailed Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is facing the prospect of more time in prison when a court delivers its verdict later this morning on some new charges. NBC News foreign correspondent Megan Fitzgerald has more on this for us. Hi, Megan. Good to see you. So we know Navalny is already serving a 9-year sentence. So first off, just remind us why he is jailed at this point and what he's been previously charged with.
Well, Savannah, good to be with you. Look, we're talking about one of the most prominent, one of the biggest opposition leaders in Russia. I mean, this is a guy who has been able to bring out crowds by the tens of thousands across Russia. We saw some of the biggest demonstrations we've ever seen in the country because of Navalny. Now, you'll remember back in 2021, he was heading back to Russia from Germany, where he was being treated for being poisoned, something that the Kremlin denies, but something that German officials confirm was a Soviet-era nerve agent. Once he got back, he was arrested, and they said it was because he violated his probation. Then last year, he announced, or in 2021, he announced that he was receiving an additional 9-year sentence for embezzlement, something that he and his supporters call trumped-up charges.
Talk to us about then these new charges that he's facing. I mentioned we're waiting on this verdict. What is he being accused of, and what kind of sentence could this carry?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So he is facing 6 separate criminal charges. This includes things like extremism and terrorism. Now, keep in mind, these are charges that have come while he's been locked up in prison for the last several years. And so, again, he calls this trumped up charges that he knows are against him because the Kremlin is certainly threatened by him, he says. And so he is expecting to be in prison for an additional 2 decades more, 20 years he could be facing.
Megan, you just mentioned a little bit about what we've heard from him, but I know he spoke out about this case yesterday. What's he expecting from today's verdict? What else did he say?
So he's prepping his supporters through his attorney, through his supporters on Instagram, on social media platforms, rather, letting them know that, look, this is going to be a huge sentence. He is standing by for what he knows will likely be, like I mentioned there, basically almost 2 decades in prison, 20 years in prison. And he calls this Stalinist type term. Of course, he's referring to Joseph Stalin, the former Soviet-era dictator. But he's calling on his supporters to continue to find ways to resist the Kremlin and what they're experiencing in Russia. So, of course, we're waiting for that verdict, which should be coming in just a couple of hours.
Okay, great, Megan. Keep us posted, and we will stay on that throughout the day. Thank you so much.
More international news now. Several people were hurt in back-to-back stabbing attacks in South Korea.
NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now with the latest on that and some other headlines. Hey, Raf, good morning.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Yeah, South Korea has been left reeling after 2 high-profile stabbing attacks in 2 days. On Thursday, a man rammed his car into pedestrians outside a shopping mall and then jumped out and began stabbing people, leaving several wounded. A 22-year-old man is in custody. But then earlier today, another attack, this time a high school teacher stabbed. The suspect still at large. In Niger, coup leaders have pulled the plug on the country's counterterrorism partnership with France, the former colonial power. That's raising concerns that the chaos may help terrorists aligned with the Islamic State. Meanwhile, the State Department is hoping to begin evacuating non-essential U.S. embassy personnel and some American citizens on charter flights. And finally, on the streets of Cuba, the classic cars, mopeds, and rickshaws are being joined by a new kind of ride, bamboo bicycles made in a local workshop. The lightweight, eco-friendly bikes are available for tourists on trips to the zoo and to the coast. And the workshop is backed by the Embassy of the Netherlands, another bike-crazy nation. Guys, bamboo bicycles, it sounds to me like a strong, sugary Cuban cocktail.
Or the name of a band. Yeah. Thanks, Raph. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Coming up, back in the House, 2 Tennessee lawmakers just won back their seats after being expelled earlier this year. We'll bring you the latest.
And recall, the warning from the FDA about a popular birth control pill. That's next on Morning News Now. New this morning, it looks like the 2 black Tennessee Democrats who were expelled from their seats earlier this year have won back their seats. The Associated Press is projecting that both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson have won re-election. The 2 were expelled by the Tennessee House back in April after protesting in support of gun safety on the chamber floor. They were temporarily reinstated a short time later by their local governments, but still needed to win their special elections to permanently retain their seats. The ousting of Jones and Pearson drew national attention and prompted accusations of racism, accusations that state Republicans deny. Turning now to an important recall on certain birth control pills.
Yeah, the pharmaceutical company Lupin is recalling 2 batches of its Tidy Me birth control, citing possible reduced effectiveness in preventing pregnancy. The FDA is also backing this recall. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel joins us on this. Good morning, Dr. Patel. So wonderful to have you with us. Tell us more about this recall. It says specific batches are impacted. What does that mean? How do you know if it impacts you?
Yeah, here's the easiest way. I'm sure many people across the country are wondering, am I even taking this? Made by manufacturer Lupin, Tidy Me. It's actually not one of the most commonly prescribed, but again, you have to look if you don't recall the name of the kind of birth control you're using, or even if you do and you're just wondering, easiest way to do it is to look kind of on the back of the box or any of the containers, the manufacturer, the lot number, all that information that's under the recall is there. If you have any questions, FDA.gov actually has all of the detailed information easily accessible from its home website. But again, it was recalled because they found, amongst some other things, reduced effectiveness. Remember, birth control is supposed to prevent unwanted pregnancies. And that was largely due to one of the findings of a high level of what's otherwise known as vitamin C, ascorbic acid.
So, Dr. Patel, for anyone who is taking the pill, what should they do now?
Yeah.
Right. The most important thing is, 1, don't panic. So this is just reduced effectiveness, and the FDA is doing exactly what its job is, to make sure that the drugs that are out there do what they say they will do. 1, call your provider. This was a prescription. You may not remember who did it for you, but call any provider because we all understand what is going on with the recall, or even if we don't, you can mention the recall. The other thing you can do is contact the manufacturer. They're facilitating through a 1-800 number, all of this on the FDA website, how you can also just contact and get more information. And again, do not be afraid. This was not some sort of risk that they found that causes harms. It's just that the FDA found that this drug is not doing what it was supposed to do, and therefore wanting people to get something that will replace this, that can enhance the effectiveness of birth control.
Doctor, is there any chance that other brands, other types of birth control could be impacted by something like this? Just women who are taking this who see a headline that, you know, its effectiveness is called into question, especially something like vitamin C. I think a lot of people don't even know that that's in birth control. Is this something we could see more of?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this is exactly what I've actually asked some other manufacturers of birth control. How common is it to see ascorbic acid used in concentrations with the pill? This is something that's not widely done. However, I think it's a great reminder. This is one of the reasons I tell people to also tell their doctors about any supplements we're taking. It just prompts me, Savannah, to remind people to say, if you're somebody that's really taking extra supplements, which could include vitamin C, probably worth talking about with your provider, because that could interfere with any of your either regular medications effectiveness. So I wouldn't worry about it for other birth controls, and I don't expect to see stories cropping up of lots of FDA recalls, but it's a reminder that everything you put in your body can have an effect.
Yeah, Dr. Patel, what have we heard from the FDA and the drug maker so far specifically on this?
So far, specifically, what we've had from the FDA is a very directed recall. They've even given, again, those lot numbers, and they know that this is really restricted to these lots. And the reason they're doing that is because, again, to your question, Savannah, they think there was something about the way these specific batches of drugs were made that might have had too much of that ascorbic acid, creating that lower effectiveness. So both the manufacturer and the FDA working in conjunction are trying to get those off the market. And what the manufacturer has made clear is that they believe that the product is sound, and it's just something about these specific batches. In the FDA specific recall, they've put out the very clear details that this is not harmful, that people don't have to worry about any long-term effects from this, but it could have reduced effectiveness. So, for example, some women might notice that this was maybe a reason that even if they were taking this pill regularly and they found themselves pregnant, it could explain why it did not prevent that pregnancy.
All right, Dr. Patel, hopefully it makes people feel good that they were able to catch something like this and so specifically.
They're doing their job.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to see you.
To the West Coast now, where a small pest is causing some big problems. It is a fruit fly invasion, and it's threatening California farms. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer has more on the massive effort to stop this small but dangerous threat.
This is the tiny invasive fruit fly now responsible for the first ever quarantine of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. The discovery of roughly 30 tau fruit flies in the LA suburb of Stevenson Ranch prompted state officials to order the agricultural quarantine across nearly 80 square miles in Los Angeles County.
We're not eating any fruit whole at the moment without looking at it first.
Officials believe the fly, native to Asia, arrived here by way of a traveler who brought in uninspected produce. Hoping to stop its spread, thousands of traps have been set, and residents have been blanketed with warnings not to move any fruits or vegetables from their homes.
I think this is definitely a wake-up call. You can spread pests from one area to another without knowing it, and it can cause billions of dollars in damage.
The yellow and black fruit fly's discovery could pose a serious threat to the critical agriculture economy. The invasive pest, about the size of a housefly, can lay eggs in produce, deeming entire yields of crops unfit for consumption.
California's $51 billion ag industry helps feed the nation and the world.
Lisa Tate's family has been farming since the 1870s.
One pest can take out a crop. It can take out an industry in months. So it's so important to keep pests out.
A big fight against a tiny fly. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
All right, coming up, a Hollywood-style drama unfolding off-screen. Some actors sounding off about waivers meant to keep productions going during the strike. More on the debate as writers and studios get ready to resume talks.
And damage control, how Lizzo is defending herself against a lawsuit filed by 3 of her former dancers. This is Morning News Now.
Welcome back. Negotiations are set to resume between the Writers Guild of America union and studios represented by AMPTP today. So there's some cautious optimism here.
It has been nearly 100 days since Hollywood writers walked off the job, which brought a stop to a number of projects, including late-night TV shows. Since then, the actors have joined them on the picket lines, bringing Hollywood to a near standstill. Workers are demanding higher pay and better working conditions under their new contract. They're also worried about streaming residuals and the growing use of artificial intelligence. Brian Balthazar, entertainment journalist and pop culture expert, joins us now to break down the latest developments. Brian, good morning. So how significant of a step is this, seeing the writers and the studios go back to the table? Does this suggest we could be closer to a contract deal between them?
It is a step in the right direction, but for clarification, this is the talk to agree to talk about getting back to. It's like a couple that's on a break that's trying to figure out whether they should talk about getting back together. So they probably won't really negotiate today, but rather say, are we close to a place where we can have the discussion? And they'll probably float some things out there. It was the AMPTP that reached out to WGA, which I think is interesting because WGA has long said, we're not going to do anything. You're going to have to come to us. So it's good to see that the AMPTP is showing a willingness now to say, okay, we're going to take a closer look at what you're asking for and see if there's room to get closer and schedule real negotiations.
I love the couple on a break analogy, Brian. Always love it. It's great. Well, so despite the ongoing strike, we've been teasing this throughout the morning and talking about how there are some actors and production companies that were able to get waivers that allow them to continue filming despite the strike. How does that work? What's the strategy here by allowing these waivers in the first place when the whole point is that nobody's supposed to be working?
Exactly. This is causing a lot of confusion with people within the union itself. Okay, so a lot of productions, if they're not part of the AMPTP, then they can continue to film. There aren't many of those, but there are about 100 waivers that have been given out by SAG-AFTRA. And it is for productions that are usually low or micro-budget productions. But there's 70 pages of terms that these studios have to agree to. And one of them is that they have to pay all the rates that they are asking for in this negotiation. So they have to raise their rates. And if they come to an agreement with those rates or even higher, they have to retroactively pay those things. It's usually left for like low budget productions that just sometimes have 5 days left of production, but in some cases, new projects. In this case, Viola Davis has a project that was approved for a film called G20, and even though it was given the waiver, she has decided to back out because she just doesn't like the optics of this and she wants to support her fellow actors. And it's interesting to see the optics of this because we're seeing a lot of A-list actors. You're used to seeing independent films with kind of unknowns, but you're seeing more A-list actors, quote unquote, in some of these films, and it's causing a few more of them to reconsider. Brad Pitt among them shut down his film Apex for the same reason. So we're seeing there's a lot of confusion about how these films are staying going, and some clarification really does need to be made.
All right, Brian Balthazar helping us understand what's going on behind the scenes here. A lot of confusing questions for folks. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Well, let's get to some money news. Apple is in a sales slump, reporting falling numbers for the third straight quarter, actually.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Good morning. Yeah, so Apple reporting a third straight quarter of falling sales. That's the longest streak since 2016, as the company is being hurt by the industry-wide slump in demand for phones, computers, and tablets. Now, iPhone demand is weaker than expected, even as Apple generated $82 billion in revenue in the past quarter. And consumers may be waiting for the iPhone 15, which is promising to be the most significant upgrade in 3 years. The UAW is pressing the big three U.S. automakers for a 40% wage increase in their next labor contract. That would be the largest hike in recent memory. The UAW is negotiating new 4-year agreements for about 150,000 hourly workers at General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis. That's the parent company of Chrysler. Currently, unionized factory workers start at about $18 an hour, with the top wage about $32 an hour. And Samsung is rolling out 50 specialized repair stores for its Galaxy smartphones. The U-Break iFix stores, which Samsung quietly opened in Houston, Los Angeles, and several other major cities, have specialized equipment and an expanded inventory of parts to provide faster repairs. Samsung phones have something called maintenance mode, and this lets you create a separate profile that excludes all your photos, videos, and notes, so repair people can access settings needed to fix the device without requiring your password or your PIN, guys.
Wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
good idea.
It is.
I'm gonna admit I'm operating with a shattered screen for quite a while now, and I just haven't done anything about it. It's driving my husband absolutely crazy.
I was afraid I'm gonna hurt my fingers. So.
Me too, yeah.
Savannah, thank you.
You got it.
Well, now to the growing reaction in this war of words, really, between superstar Lizzo and 3 of her former dancers.
The dancers sued Lizzo this week, alleging they were weight shamed and sexually harassed, that Lizzo created a hostile work environment. Lizzo responded yesterday, posting a statement on social media, in part calling the allegations false and outrageous. Then the dancers responded during an interview with Entertainment Tonight yesterday, with one of them saying that Lizzo is essentially gaslighting them. Public relations and crisis management expert Molly McPherson joins us now to talk more about this. Molly, let's look at Lizzo's response here, which we talked about 24 hours ago yesterday morning. In addition to calling the allegations false and outrageous, Lizzo also said these sensationalized stories are coming from former employees who have already publicly admitted that they were told their behavior on tour was inappropriate and unprofessional. The attorney for the dancers quickly responded to that, saying Lizzo's denial only adds to his client's emotional distress. This is your area of expertise. What do you make of that statement, the entire statement that came out from Lizzo yesterday?
Well, it's not unexpected that she came out in full denial mode. People were a little surprised about the delay. That delay gave social media a lot of time to inject commentary, and the commentary was not positive. So Lizzo had to dig herself out of a reputation hole.
From a PR perspective, I mean, what should the plan of action be here, especially when a celebrity is facing allegations as serious as this?
Well, when celebrities are out in a public eye like this, there's so much scrutiny on their behavior, but there's also a lot of content out there, and there's a lot of history and archival footage. So it's very difficult to navigate these legal situations when there's a lot of evidence out there that could counter it. In Lizzo's case, it was the lack of transparency, it's denying it, and also the delay in the response. The public has let her know that they're not buying it.
So one of the main reasons this made headlines is because on top of her talent, Lizzo has really built her career on messages of inclusion and body positivity. How does that come into play here when she is being accused of weight shaming?
Yeah, it is interesting how Lizzo is taking such a hit and such a fall in her PR nightmare. There's plenty of PR nightmares out there for celebrities. But in her case, it's the hypocrisy that bothers people so much. I mean, body positivity is something that everyone can get behind. But when we find out that Lizzo was not behind it, that's the reason why the public is turning.
Molly, obviously Lizzo is incredibly famous, but also one of these three former dancers who is suing Lizzo, you know, is kind of known to the public in her own right because she was on Lizzo's dance competition show, but kind of, you know, bringing her personality to the forefront. How does that factor into a case like this when it comes to damage control, the fact that the public actually is aware of some of these individuals?
Yeah, that always adds a new wrinkle when there's another person or a victim in this case that's inserted into the narrative. We have a face, we have a name, we have history there, we know about their relationship. So on social media, people can take sides. And when you have a victim like that, they tend to take the side of that person, particularly since they saw her on a reality show.
Molly, thank you very much for joining us on this.
Thank you so much.
Coming up, a high five to remember for a little boy who could be the Baltimore Ravens' biggest fan.
When we come back, the story behind this viral moment between the 8-year-old and his favorite player. You're watching Morning News Now.
Welcome back. The legendary Phoenix Mercury basketball star Diana Taurasi just keeps on breaking records. Yesterday, she became the first WNBA player to score 10,000 points in her career. She reached that milestone with a three-pointer in the third quarter against the Atlanta Dream. Taurasi has been the league's all-time leading scorer since 2017, when she surpassed Tina Thompson's previous record of 7,000 points.
Wow.
She just keeps, think about it, that was 6 years ago. And she just keeps on going.
Very much past it, if that was the other record. 3,000 past 7,000. Wow, 10,000 points. That's crazy. Thanks, Joe. Well, let's stay on sports news and a really cute story. Finally, this hour, football is back with the NFL preseason kicking off yesterday. But one 8-year-old Ravens fan has already experienced the biggest highlight of the season. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber has the story.
They say, don't meet your hero, unless you're 8-year-old Mason Young. The Ravens superfan going viral for this priceless reaction after getting a high five from none other than Baltimore quarterback Lamar Jackson.
He's a role model.
Mason, who's from Pikesville, just outside of Baltimore, has been playing football since he was 5 years old. The goal, to be like MVP Lamar.
I want to have his feet and I want to have his throwing power.
Now Mason is working on those skills with the Pikesville Wildcats.
Lamar means everything to these kids. A lot of the kids don't even want to wear their practice jerseys that say Pikesville. They want to wear their Lamar Jackson jersey before and after practice. They're practicing their Lamar Jackson move, like, oh, I'm Lamar.
To the young players from Pikesville, Jackson is much more than just a football star.
Turn on the TV screen and to see Lamar Jackson representing your city, and you can say, you know what, I identify with him. He has braids like I have braids. He might have his hair out. And he, you know, like these kids just idolize him because they see themselves in him.
So for the team's hard work this summer, Coach Saheed bringing them to the Ravens training camp, which is where, hands stretched out, Mason got that once-in-a-lifetime moment that's filling him with gratitude.
Thank you to my teammates, thank you to my coaches, and thank you to Lamar.
freeze frame on his face.
I know.
It's so adorable. Allison Barber, that was a great report. How much fun
I
is
want to
that?
have that feeling with me all the time.
I know.
All right, that's going to do it for this hour. Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now. Do not go anywhere. Good morning. Happy Friday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, arraigned. Former President Donald Trump fingerprinted and processed before pleading not guilty to federal charges that he conspired to overturn the 2020 election. The surreal scene playing out in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, the scene of the January 6th attacks. We'll take you through the unprecedented moment in American history, the reaction from the former president, and the warning he received from the magistrate. Also this morning, sailor spies. 2 U.S. Navy sailors are accused of separately spying for China. What we've learned about the alleged scheme, the suspects, and the secrets they're accused of selling. Cutting class. Florida effectively bans the teaching of AP psychology. The move coming after the state's Department of Education said elements of the course were illegal under a new controversial law. We're digging into the move, what it means for Florida students, and how both the state and the College Board are responding. And Shark Weekend. The summer movie season is in full effect. That means the return of the biggest and baddest shark around. We're diving into everything you need to know in our Can't Miss list.
I don't know about that movie. That mega Tron thing. What is it?
I'm not even
like
up to date on it.
Yeah.
So I don't. But there's a Broadway about the show about the Jaws shark.
Oh yes,
that's coming out, and I'm going to see that next week. So that'll be That'll be my shark experience.
Yes.
Good to have you with us. We're going to begin this hour with former President Donald Trump's second arraignment on federal charges, this time in connection with alleged interference in the 2020 election.
The former president pleaded not guilty to 4 charges in all yesterday, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. Trump's arraignment comes after months of investigation by the Department of Justice into the January 6th riots. We have civil rights attorney and former prosecutor Kristen Gibbons fed in to break things down from a legal perspective. But first, NBC News correspondent Garrett Hake is in Washington with the latest.
The entire hearing lasted only 27 minutes. The former president speaking up several times to offer the judge his full name and his age and his not guilty plea, all while under the watchful gaze of the special counsel, who's accused him of trying to steal the 2020 election.
Former President Donald Trump in federal court just blocks from the U.S. Capitol, attacked by some of his supporters on January 6th. Mr. Trump pleading not guilty to 4 felony charges, stemming from what prosecutors say was a criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 election, including conspiracy to defraud the United States. Following his arraignment, the 2024 Republican frontrunner claimed the charges against him are designed to damage his campaign.
This is a persecution of a political opponent. This was never supposed to happen in America.
But for the most part, the former president was treated like any other criminal defendant. He was processed and fingerprinted, but no mugshot was taken. Inside the courtroom, Mr. Trump and his attorneys sat just steps away from special counsel Jack Smith. He was released on the condition he not communicate with witnesses about the case unless attorneys are present. The judge also warning Mr. Trump that it would be a crime to influence the jury and to threaten or retaliate against witnesses or any other person who may have information about the case. The judge adding, quote, if you fail to comply with any of the conditions of your release, a warrant may be issued for your arrest. That somewhat unusual warning notable because of Mr. Trump's history of verbally attacking witnesses, prosecutors, and judges involved in other criminal and civil proceedings he's faced.
Deranged Jack Smith and the DOJ will probably bring another case.
Mr. Trump's attorneys say they'll fight against a speedy trial.
This is a fast-moving railroad without any concern for justice.
Despite his dominance in the 2024 Republican primary, the former president is facing at least 3 trials in the coming year, including in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Aide Walt Nauta, his co-defendant in that case, at his side yesterday in Washington. With a possible 4th indictment looming in Georgia this month, where the Fulton County DA is investigating Mr. Trump's alleged attempts to overturn President Biden's 2020 victory in that state.
The next hearing in this case will be August 28th. That's when the judge hopes to set a trial date. The prosecution has indicated they want to move quickly. Donald Trump's team says they'll push for delay.
All right, Garrett Hake, thank you.
Let's bring in Kristen Gibbons-Fedden for more on this. Kristen, good morning. So we have been talking a lot about the amount of evidence the government has in this case. Trump's legal team objected to a speedy trial here because they argue there won't be enough time to get through all of the evidence. So can we expect to see the defense file motions to get some of this thrown out? And then how do you think the government is going to maybe respond to that?
Yeah, absolutely. We already know firsthand that the defendants are going to seek a change of venue. But they're also most likely going to seek suppression motions, which is going to be for the evidence to not be allowed to be used by the government, even though it exists. And they may say there was a violation of constitutional rights. In this particular case, they may say that there was a violation of any type of executive privilege, and that's how those statements got out. So I can absolutely assure you, just from Trump's history, that it would not be surprising at all if the court is flooded with a ton of motions, not only for delay, but they're probably going to be substantively based.
So Trump's legal team says they plan to basically relitigate the 2020 elections in this trial. Let's listen to some of what Trump's attorney John Lauro had to say.
President Trump wanted to get to the truth. He desperately wanted to get to what happened during the 2020 cycle. He did it in the courtroom. He did it in lobbying legislatures. That's all First Amendment. And then at the end, he asked Mr. Pence to pause the voting for 10 days, allow the state legislatures to weigh in, and then they could make a determination to audit or re-audit or recertify.
So how risky is this to try and rehash the 2020 election?
I think it's really risky. But if you think about it, this is really just a defense to eliminate the requisite intent that the prosecutor will have to prove. And it's really shaped in really a First Amendment argument. Essentially, what he's saying is Trump was right. But it's really risky, though, because, you know, in this case, and I think Bill Barr had actually pointed this out, the First Amendment right is not absolute. It does not protect an individual's right to lie or engage in political advocacy. It does not provide protection for actions that involve criminal behavior, such as engaging in conspiracies to commit fraud or obstruct official proceedings, which is exactly what the indictment alleges. So in this case, it's probably going to be extremely risky, particularly when you have so many co-conspirators and such a mountain of evidence.
Kristen, let's talk about Vice President Mike Pence. His name mentioned dozens of times in this indictment. What's the likelihood he could be called to testify at a trial, or could his grand jury testimony be enough here?
No, he's going to have to be called as called to the trial. You know, you can't just put in testimony. It would be hearsay because during the grand jury proceedings, the defendant did not have the full opportunity to cross-examine that particular witness. And that is the defendant's constitutional right. So to the extent the government wants to utilize former Vice President Pence's testimony and any evidence that he may be able to provide, they are going to have to call him to the stand. Now, that's not to say that former Vice President Pence will not want to or object to it, but the prosecution will need to call him as a live witness so that the defendant can have the full opportunity to cross-examine him.
All right, Kristen Gibbons-Fedden, as always, we appreciate your analysis. Thanks for joining us this morning.
And this morning, we're hearing new testimony from Hunter Biden's former business partner. Yesterday, the House Oversight Committee released a 141-page transcript of the testimony from Devin Archer. In it, he said he has no knowledge that President Joe Biden changed U.S. foreign policy to help his son, and that he's not aware of any wrongdoing on President Biden's part. NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli joins us now with more on all this. So, Mike, just first tell us, what are some of the main takeaways from this transcript?
Well, Savannah, this testimony behind closed doors happened just a few days ago on Monday. And while we weren't in the room, obviously, we did hear from a number of the Democratic and Republican members of the Oversight Committee afterwards, presenting some of the things that they had heard in, as you would expect, the most favorable political light for their positions. And so having this lengthy transcript enabled us to really try to discern the truth, see it on the printed page, what exactly was said. And the bottom line is that, as you laid out, that Devin Archer, under repeated questioning, especially from the Republican members of the committee, said that he was unaware of any instance in which Joe Biden, as Vice President of the United States, was able to change any policy to benefit any of the business partners that he and Hunter Biden were engaged with at the time. He did say that Hunter Biden was maybe selling the illusion of access, trying to convey access to power by doing things like putting his father on speakerphone when he was around these business partners when the vice president at the time would happen to call him. But he said those conversations exchanges between father and son were often just simply pleasantries, talking about the weather, talking about going fishing, and that there was no business actually being discussed in the context of those conversations. There was one interesting exchange where a Democratic member of the Oversight Committee asked Archer whether it was fair to say that perhaps members of the Trump family benefited in their businesses by having their last name, and Archer said, yes, I would speculate that was the case as well.
Mike, this happened on the same day of Trump's arraignment. Is there anything to that timing there?
Yes, Savannah, I've covered a number of these, especially oversight committee hearings in the past, especially during the Trump administration, and it was notable to us. We had been expecting this transcript to come, but not for a matter of weeks. There's usually a legal review that has to happen. The witnesses have to sign off. Their lawyers have to sign off in order for it to be released so quickly. And so often it does take more than a few days. It takes a few weeks. So this was a bit of a surprise. And for the Democrats, and particularly for the White House, this to them was proof of what they say has been a long-term pattern, that whenever the former president is facing some sort of legal headline that is problematic to him, his allies on Capitol Hill on the Republican side find ways to release information, make announcements about their investigations to try to, in their view, muddy the waters. Republicans simply saying that this was the timing when they were able to put out the transcript, and it had nothing to do with what the former president was engaged in yesterday.
So, Mike, I think there's really two questions here on this whole thing. There is the question of Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings, and then there's also the question of President Biden's involvement. We heard yesterday from House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan, suggesting that this testimony was damaging to President Biden. But now that you've seen through this whole transcript, what do you make of those two things, both Hunter's actions as well as President Biden's involvement, purposefully or not?
Yeah. That's right. It's still very difficult because while we do have obviously testimony from a business partner who was on hand for some of these conversations publicly between Hunter Biden and his father at the time, there are Republicans who continue to insist that there are other forms of electronic communications or other communications which indicate that perhaps the president now, President Biden, has not been forthcoming in disclosing the way in which he may have been involved. Now, ultimately, the House committees here, both the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, are going to continue their investigations. The White House is saying that yesterday proved yet again that another witness has not lived up to the hype Republicans were offering in terms of a bombshell disclosure. And ultimately, of course, the question is, does this lead to impeachment? Now, the bar in the Constitution says high crimes and misdemeanors, but it's often said the bar for impeachment really is whatever the party can get 218 votes for. So if enough Republicans, most of that caucus, come together and vote to impeach the president on any charge that may emerge from these committees, then that will be enough to trigger, of course, an impeachment process and a trial in the Senate. The White House, of course, again, continuing to say that these are simply stunts with no merit.
Mike Memoli, thank you so much.
Two Navy sailors are under arrest in Southern California and have been indicted with allegedly spying on the U.S. for China. Federal prosecutors say the two sailors accepted bribes in exchange for sensitive U.S. military information. NBC News national correspondent Miguel Almaguer joins us now from Naval Base Ventura County. Miguel, good morning.
Joe, good morning. This is one of the naval bases where one of those accused spies served before he was arrested. He faces 20 years in prison. A second sailor could get life in prison. Authorities say as of right now, there's no sign the men were working together.
This morning, two American sailors charged with passing sensitive intelligence to China in exchange for money. The Department of Justice and FBI announcing their arrests.
When a soldier or sailor chooses cash over country and hands over national defense information in an ultimate act of betrayal, we have to be ready to act.
22-year-old Jin Xiao Wei, a naturalized U.S. citizen, was a sailor on the amphibious assault ship, the USS Essex.
Wei sent national defense information to China, including documents, photos, videos, and technical manuals. In exchange, his intelligence officer paid Wei thousands of dollars.
Wei has been charged under the Espionage Act, which carries a life sentence. His attorney entering a not guilty plea on his behalf. Also arrested in a separate case of espionage, 26-year-old Wenheng Zhao, the petty officer working at a naval base in Ventura County, California, pleading not guilty in federal court. Officials say Zhao gave non-public intel to a Chinese intelligence officer for almost 2 years, passing along operational plans for military exercises, photographs and blueprints of a radar system on a U.S. military base in Okinawa, Japan, and details about the Navy's operations at his home base and on San Clemente Island. In exchange, they allege a Chinese operative paid Zhao about $15,000.
Mr. Zhao chose a path of corruption.
Officials say the charges were part of a broader strategy by the U.S. to counter China's criminal efforts to steal its sensitive information.
The scheme alleged here is just one more example of the People Republic of China's ongoing and brazen campaign to target U.S. officials with access to sensitive military secrets.
Both sailors who remain in custody are expected back in court in the next few weeks. Their federal trials should start shortly after that. Joe?
All right, Miguel, thank you.
Well, now let's get to the heat. We are still expecting some record-breaking temperatures across the country heading into the weekend.
Meteorologist Angie Lassman is back with the latest numbers. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Finally Friday, but for folks in Austin, they have officially broken, no surprise, a record when it comes to heat. 28 consecutive days over 100 degrees, and it doesn't look like there's any relief in that area here anytime soon, so the trend will continue. 48 million people are under these heat alerts this morning. Where you see the brighter pink, that's a heat warning. Where you see the orange, that is a heat advisory, including places basically from Phoenix all the way to the Gulf Coast. And temperatures sitting once again into the triple digits in all those same places that we've been dealing with this for the extended period. 102 for Jackson later today, 105 for Dallas. Not quite a record this afternoon, but still very uncomfortable and feeling much warmer than that actual temperature of 105 this afternoon in Dallas. Tucson, you're headed to 108. That would be just 1 degree shy of today's daily record high. Now, looking into your Saturday, not much improvement. Phoenix will challenge a record or potentially tie it of 115 tomorrow, 109 for Wichita Falls. Our friends in Austin, they are likely to hit 107, which would be a record. You look a little farther to the north, and really that's where all the nice, comfortable summertime conditions are. Parts of Washington, D.C. are ending up into the upper 80s. We'll see upper 80s to kind of mid 70s across the plains. And then we transition into the last day of the weekend and into the next work week, and we sit right in that same range, especially across the Midwest. Mid to low 80s for folks in Chicago. If you're keeping track in Minneapolis, upper 70s to low 80s as we head into our next work week. So overall, temperatures fairly comfortable in that area. But we also have some strong storms to worry about and some potentially heavy rainfall that could impact you, not just today, but through the weekend. We've got flood alerts up. We've already seen some impressive flooding out west, reports of some roads closed in places like Utah. And that heavy rain continues to work across parts of Memphis, stretching from basically Jefferson City to Birmingham, unsettled along the East Coast, and parts of New England are dealing with those thunderstorms this morning. We're going to have this rain working through at least through Saturday in some of these spots, and the highest amounts will be totals ending up anywhere from 1 to 3 inches across parts of the plains. So just a heads up on that. Now, the severe risk will be around through the weekend. Take your pick, find your house on the map, because it's going to be moving a little farther to the east through the next couple of days. Today, centered across the plains and in the northeast. Eventually tomorrow, it'll be Kansas City that we'll have to watch for, right in the bullseye of that, including Wichita too, and then the Midwest, places Chicago to Nashville. We'll see that into Sunday. And how about this, guys? State Fair forecast. If you're trying to get out there across some of these places, Montana ends up a little soggy for folks there. In Indianapolis, the better day is going to be on Saturday. That goes for most of the Midwest too, Columbus as well.
It's not a lot of great fair weather.
Yeah, an elephant ear sounds
State
good.
Fair forecast, right.
Just on Sunday.
Okay, thanks, Angie. Coming up, if you feel like mosquitoes are more attractive to you than your friends, you might be right. Up next, we're diving into the science behind what makes some people more vulnerable to those bothersome bites.
But first, dropping out. Florida's controversial new law has caused the state to effectively ban AP psychology in high schools. How the College Board is responding next.
Welcome back. Another battle is brewing in Florida over what students there can and cannot be taught.
This latest salvo is over the College Board's Advanced Placement AP Psychology course. The board says that some of the subject matter in the course is now effectively banned because of the state's controversial parental rights in education law. NBC News correspondent Guad Venegas joins us now from Miami with more on this. So, Guad, remind us what this law does. This is the law critics call the Don't Say Gay law, and then why the College Board is saying it effectively bans bans this AP course.
Joe, Savannah, good morning. Well, this law, which critics call Don't Say Gay, expanded back in April. So originally, it only affected students kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. And it bans educators from teaching sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, in April, state authorities expanded that to include students up to 12th grade. So under the guidance of that new law, then the class of advanced placement psychology taught in high school that includes gender identity and sexual orientation content would be illegal according to state authorities. So the Board of Education, the State Board of Education, informed high schools in Florida that teaching the course that includes that content would then be illegal. And that's where we stand now, Joe.
So, Guad, what has the response been to this ban, and what's the Florida Department of Education saying in response?
Well, Savannah, advanced placement classes in high school, the AP classes, are created by the College Board. In fact, high school students take these classes so that they can get credit when they go to college. So the College Board has said that modifying the class would then make it non-compliant, because the state said, well, teachers can modify the class and not include gender identity and sexual orientation in the courses. Yet the American Psychological Association says this is necessary as part of the human experience when teaching psychology. So they say that excluding science surrounding sexual orientation, gender identity means that students will receive an incomplete education. Meanwhile, state authorities have responded saying that they have not banned the course. They say the course remains there, listed in the directory, but they're saying they encourage the College Board to stop playing games with Florida students and continue to offer the course and allow teachers to operate accordingly. Now, the College Board is saying that if this content is excluded from the classes, it will not be compliant. And the American Psychological Association is saying that content has been there for 30 years, and it is necessary to have it as part of the course in order for students to have all the content that is necessary. So essentially, the state is saying you can teach the class if you modify it, but the authorities that created the class and the experts are saying if it doesn't have that content, then the class is invalid.
Yeah, kind of hard, they argue, to teach psychology if you're not talking at all about sexual orientation and sexual identity, gender identity, which is, of course, a huge part of psychology. Guad, this comes months after the state's decision to block AP African American Studies courses. So what does this mean for students as they will start to head back to school soon?
So, Joe, some students are going to go back to school in about a week. A lot of them were planning to take this class. When you look at the number, about 290,000 students in American high schools took this class last year, or took the test to get college credit. Of those, almost 10% were in Florida. So this means that high school students who are planning to take AP Psychology will not be able to take that class in the state of Florida as of now and receive college credit. Now, there are some institutions that have agreed to modify the class, but as said by the College Board, if the class is modified, as you mentioned, it will not include all the elements necessary, according to the American Psychological Association. So there will not be college credit for any student that wants to take this class. And then that has other consequences, Joe, because among high school students, when they are very competitive, they take a lot of college classes, college credit classes, these AP classes that helps them with their GPA and eventually also helps them to get entry into certain universities. So there will be other effects for students that want to compete with other students around the country with a number of AP classes that they take in high school. These are the advanced placement classes, Joe.
And yeah, if you get the credit in college, then you save money because you don't have to pay as much for those credits. Of course. All right, Guad, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Let's get you some international news now. There's new video out this morning that appears to show a damaged Russian warship after an attack by a Ukrainian sea drone.
NBC News correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us with that and other world news. Raf, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Savannah. Yeah, a Russian warship appears to have suffered serious damage earlier during a Ukrainian attack using sea drones. Russia's defense ministry says it fended off the attack, but videos on social media appear to show one of its warships listing to the side and being towed back to port, suggesting the drones may have got through. There was no immediate word on casualties. In China, a massive sinkhole has opened up amid that torrential rain, causing the basement of a high-rise building to collapse. At least 20 deaths have been caused by the floods, and authorities expect it could take a month before the water recedes in some of the worst affected areas. Local residents have been working with the military to evacuate those trapped inside their homes. And finally, if you're looking to compose your own Bohemian Rhapsody and you have a couple $1,000,000 to spare, you are in luck, because Freddie Mercury's black Yamaha piano is going on sale. It's the same piano on which he composed the 1975 Queen epic Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's one of thousands of his possessions being sold at auction. And Joe, my friend, this might interest you. For a mere $600, you can buy Mercury's silver Tiffany's mustache comb.
My goodness, I didn't know I was supposed to have such a fancy silver. I just have like a cheap little beard brush.
Oh,
so
well,
perhaps
$600. It's actually not that bad.
I bet my mustache will look really good.
Yeah, exactly. Rob, thanks. That's fun. Coming up, an Air Force veteran says her work left her unable to have a child.
Now she's filing a lawsuit saying she was denied coverage for fertility treatments because she's married to a woman. That story next. An Air Force veteran is accusing the VA of discrimination. She says they turned down her request for fertility treatments because she's married to a woman. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro has that story.
A decorated Air Force veteran says she was denied fertility treatments because her spouse is a woman.
This is someone who served nearly 20 years in the military. She loves her country. She loves military service, but she's shocked and disappointed that she's being treated like a second-class citizen.
Ashley Sheffield is now part of a class action lawsuit against the Department of Veterans Affairs. She medically retired from the military in 2021 at the age of 38. The lawsuit details Sheffield's exposure to jet fuel and PFAS during her service, resulting in ovarian adhesions, which can cause infertility. She says the VA recognized her conditions as service-connected, even compensating her for loss of a use of a reproductive organ. Ready to start her family after marrying her wife in 2021, she sought IVF treatments, but instead says she was sent this letter of denial from her local VA program, stating, quote, "You are not qualified if you're in a same-sex marriage or if the sperm is donated from someone other than a male spouse. I am sorry."
I was incredibly surprised as a lawyer in the civil rights field that Ashley came to us and showed us this letter. That the government was telling her in black and white, you don't qualify for a benefit because you're married to a woman.
Sheffield lives in Massachusetts, the first state to recognize same-sex marriage in the country. And last year, Congress passed the Respect for Marriage Act.
Now, the law requires that interracial marriage and same-sex marriage must be recognized as legal in every state in the nation.
But Sheffield's attorneys say the VA is citing language in the 2021 Appropriations Act that outlines the eligibility for IVF coverage. The veteran and their spouse must be, quote, a cisgender, opposite-sex, legally married couple.
Is it fair to say that her fertility may have been affected by her service to our country, given what she was exposed to, and now that same country is refusing to take care of her because of who she's married to?
That's exactly right. She put her life on the line. She sacrificed a whole lot of things over over 2 decades in the military. And, you know, her body was impacted by her service. We think that the government has an obligation and a duty to provide her with the benefits that she deserves and she's earned through her service and through her sacrifice.
A VA spokesperson telling NBC News the department does not comment on pending litigation. In a statement, the VA press secretary pointing to the president's fiscal year 2024 budget submission that includes a proposal to expand access to fertility treatment, including for single veterans and those in same-sex relationships.
It's our view that the Biden administration has the full authority to provide these benefits to Ashley Sheffield and every other couple that is in a same-sex marriage.
Now Sheffield has sought out costly private fertility treatments while hoping changes in the near future for other LGBTQ+ veterans and their families like hers. Valerie Castro, NBC News.
Well, turning now to some pesky business. While summer is filled with many joys, including hitting the beach or spending quality time with friends and family, it's also a time when many are getting those itchy mosquito bites. And if you've ever thought you were a mosquito magnet, you just might be. This morning, we're learning more on why mosquitoes are attracted to some people more than others. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock joins us now from Parkland, Florida, with more on what you can do to avoid getting bitten. Sam, I'm saying all this to you with about 15 mosquito bites on my legs. I swear I'm a magnet, and I always say that, so I can't wait to be proven right. What do we need to know here?
Thank you. You feel seen, Savannah. I feel seen. I can tell you right now that when I'm outside, it is open season within 5 minutes for mosquitoes. And a lot of people are wondering, is it because my blood is actually so sweet? Just like your mom probably told you. No, that is largely not the reason. But scientists say it is your scent that might be attracting the mosquitoes. And in fact, even exercising, Savannah, outside during the summer might make you more vulnerable. You might say it's all the buzz these days.
For some reason, they love my blood. I get eaten alive.
Those annoying mosquitoes that come out in full force in the summer, producing biting, itching, and scratching that's one of the hallmarks of the season. But if it seems like they're extra attracted to you, they actually might be.
I guess I have sweet blood. They were all over me.
New research suggests it's not the sweetness of your blood, but the seduction of your scent. According to the director of infectious disease at New York Presbyterian Queens, mosquitoes appear to be drawn to a few different factors, including our unique smell.
The sweat glands produce oil, and we know that those are signatures to each person, and some may be much more attractive to mosquito.
Other factors with a high correlation for blood-sucking bites, the temperature of your skin, and an increased release of CO2, which might explain why exercising in high temps can lure more mosquitoes. Another surprising risk factor, pregnancy.
Pregnant women tend to have a higher body temperature. They're also exhaling more carbon dioxide, which we know is more attractive to mosquitoes.
But here's the good news. There are steps you can take to reduce your exposure. Experts say apply an EPA-approved bug repellent, wear long sleeves and light pants when possible.
We're back with some breaking economic numbers.
Yeah, the U.S. economy added 187,000 jobs in July, which was less than expected. In the meantime, the unemployment rate dipped slightly to 3.5%. Here to help us make sense of this latest report, two of our favorites, NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung and Investopedia's editor-in-chief Caleb Silver. Good morning to both of you here in studio. Brian over at the big board for us. Walk us through these numbers, Brian, and how they compare to last month.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. As you mentioned, 187,000 jobs. That's how many were added in the month of July. And for what it's worth, we need to contextualize it within the previous months. That is a slower pace than 209,000 that we saw originally reported in June. And this is below what economists had expected of around 200,000. I want to point out two things really quickly. First, that the unemployment rate fell to 3.5% from 3.6% in the prior month. 3.5%, by the way, is essentially near over 50-year lows. So the story of strong employment still remaining the case. And I also want to point out, even though this doesn't look that good compared to June, they revised down the June numbers. They tend to do this. They look at the previous months and say, we get a more accurate reading of what we saw. And they actually said that the amount of jobs added in that month was 185,000. So it's not necessarily all that bad, even though it was a little bit lower than what the Wall Street economists had expected.
So, Caleb, your reaction to the numbers, especially it's being less than expected, what does that tell us about the state of our economy?
Hiring is cooling a little bit, but there's still 9.6 million jobs available out there in the United States right now. There are plenty of jobs for people looking for work, and the hiring across sectors was pretty robust. Healthcare, which has been very strong, at least 63,000 jobs. Social assistance, 24,000. Financial activities. This is banking. Jobs added in the banking sector after all that banking madness a few months ago. We're still seeing some job gains there. So if you look across the bench, it's pretty good.
Brian, expand on that for us. Tell us more about what sectors we're seeing the biggest job gains or losses in.
Yeah, well, as Caleb was really interestingly noting, healthcare was a big driver of the job gains in this month. But these are three particular categories I've been watching over the past few months. Leisure and hospitality, that's just the government's accounting for bars and restaurants. That added 17,000 jobs in the month. Again, these are blue-collar jobs that really drive our services-based economy. So good to see there are still job gains there. Retail trade, think of jobs at the mall, also gaining jobs in the month, up about 8,500. And then professional and business services, this is an interesting bucket that could include a lot of the tech sector. Again, it's not all tech sector, but a lot of those jobs do fold into there. We saw a contraction in the month, actually down about 8,000 in the month. So something definitely worth watching in the future, although interesting to see that financial services, as Caleb also pointed out, did increase in the month.
Jobs at the mall, does that include Hollister by any chance, Brian?
It does, Savannah. I do know you love pointing that out. Former alum here, former alum.
Caleb, our favorite question we'd love to ask you is the Fed's slated to meet toward the end of September. Now we're in this territory where maybe it's a little harder to predict what they're going to do. Could we see more interest rate hikes?
Yeah, we're going to get another jobs report before they meet. The meeting is way off in September right now. But what we want to watch here closely is the average hourly earnings, which were at 4.4%. Those have been dropping month after month, and that's what the Fed wants to see. They want to see a slowdown in hiring. We're seeing it. And they want to see a slowdown in wage gains. We're seeing that, too. So this could be a good sign. They may say, hey, we're getting to that Goldilocks area. Maybe no more rate hikes for the rest of the year.
Brian, for people at home, what does this mean?
Well, I want to look at that wage number that Caleb was just talking about, because, again, the context here is that the amount of money that people are making at their jobs, if they're employed, is still rising. So 4.4%, as mentioned, that is the same pace as we saw in June. And the big story, though, is inflation, right? So wages are high. But here's the good news, which we've only seen as of the last few months. The pace of wage growth is higher than the pace of overall inflation. Prices across the board for everything are rising by 3%. So your wages are outpacing how expensive it is across the board for things. So let's say, for example, you work at Hollister, for example. Your wages are going up by 4.4%. But if you want to buy the clothes at the store, it's actually cheaper than compared to how high your wages are going. So that's good news for the employee that's working there.
All right, Brian, Caleb, Hollister, thank you all.
Thanks for playing along, Brian.
Yeah.
Sticking with money news, more than 90,000 cars are at risk of catching fire.
CNBC's Silvana Henao is back with that and other financial headlines. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah, Joe, good morning. Hyundai and Kia are recalling more than 91,000 newer vehicles in the U.S. due to fire risks. The automakers are urging owners to park outside and away from buildings while it works on a repair plan. The issue involves the electric oil pump, which could overheat. The recall covers the Hyundai Palisade, Tucson, Sonata, Elantra, and Kona, and Kia Soul and Sportage vehicles from the 2023 and 2024 model years. Amazon reporting quarterly profits that blew away analysts' forecasts. The company showing strength in e-commerce and digital advertising, offsetting a continued slowdown in cloud computing services from its AWS business. Amazon is also benefiting from a series of cost cuts, which included layoffs. CEO Andy Jassy says everyone in the company is now working on AI-related projects. And Google is making it easier to find and remove your contact information from search results. It will now send notifications when it finds your address, phone number, or email on the web. You'll be able to review and request the information be removed from search, and it's all part of Google's Results About You dashboard, which it launched last year. Once you input your personal information, it will automatically pull up websites that may contain any matches, guys.
Right, that seems
Sounds
like a good
pretty
idea.
good.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Silvana.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Got it.
Well, Simone Biles is preparing to make her return to competition. That's right. The most decorated gymnast ever is set to compete in this weekend's U.S. Classic. It is her first competition since she withdrew from the Tokyo Olympics to focus on her mental health.
NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa joins us now with a preview. Maggie, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, as you said, basically the GOAT is back, telling her fans on social media she's grateful for their support and she's excited to get back out on the floor here at the Core Hydration Classic this weekend. This, as you point out, after that 2-year mental health hiatus that for a lot of people solidified Simone Biles as the greatest gymnast of all time. This morning, after years out of the Olympic spotlight, Simone Biles, widely considered the greatest gymnast of all time, is on the comeback trail. The 26-year-old 7-time Olympic medalist and 25-time World Championship medalist set to compete at this weekend's U.S. Classic outside Chicago. Biles posting she's overwhelmed by her fans' support, adding excited to get back out on the competition floor. This after a headline-making hiatus, starting with a sudden exit from 2021's Tokyo Olympic Games. Biles blaming a bout of the twisties, a mental phenomenon that destroys gymnasts' ability to judge where they are in the air.
It's about getting lost in the air and hurting yourself. And I think people didn't understand that
Yeah,
either.
because it's not something they could physically touch or see. It's inside of my head.
Biles later withdrawing from all competitions to focus on her mental health, writing at the time she felt like she had the weight of the world on her shoulders. While she's been away from the mat, Biles capped 2 years of personal milestones, including last year receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom and in April marrying NFL star Jonathan Owens, all while leading a chorus of athletes championing mental health. This weekend, Biles will be back together with teammates like Suni Lee and Jordan Childs, and the All-Star USA gymnastics team is already looking ahead to next year's Paris Olympics. Childs talking to Savannah in Paris earlier this summer.
Honestly, it's an amazing thing, just being able to be here and just feel the environment and everything like that. I'm beyond excited.
Excitement building as Team USA fans look forward to a big comeback this weekend. You can see some of those fans behind me here. People are getting really psyched, guys. So for those keeping track at home, Biles is registered this weekend to compete in all 4 events. That's floor, beam, uneven bars, and vault. And of course, we talk a lot about the road to the Olympics, the road to 2024 in Paris. And it's worth noting that this Core Hydration Classic, just to kind of lay this out, this is a qualifying event for nationals. And as we know at NBC, nationals is one of the events that they use to choose Team USA for the Olympics. So the fact that she registered, that she's here, that she's competing, that is a huge sign that indeed she is on the road again to the Olympic stage. Guys, I'll send it back to you.
Love to see that. All right, Maggie, thank you so much. Coming up, box office bite. That's different from a mosquito bite. It's the shark that makes Jaws look like a minnow, and now it's back with a bang.
Ralphie Aversa is here with us to go over everything you need to know in our can't miss list. That is up next. Welcome back. Ryan Gosling has gotten a lot of buzz for his performance in the new Barbie movie, of course. Well, that looks like his singing was, as they say in the movie, Ken-enough, Ken-enough to land him on Billboard's top 100. Gosling's song, I'm Just Ken, entered the chart at number 87. Not bad, especially considering he's never had a song on the charts before. But the power ballad actually isn't his only song in the movie. Gosling also recorded a cover of the Matchbox 20 song, Push. Have you seen Barbie yet?
I haven't seen Barbie yet.
That's what I thought.
So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But he was also singing La La Land, so he's becoming
the I'm Just Ken, whole number. You would like it.
Yeah, well, I'll see it. I just need to have a spare moment in my life. All right.
It is Friday, which means we have all the movies and TV shows that you just can't miss this weekend.
Yeah, host and producer for Entertain This, Ralphie Aversa, joins us now. All right, let's start out with what's in theaters. We actually talked about this a week ago. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles now is in theaters. What are we hearing about it?
We're hearing a lot of great things about it. A 94% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, for one thing. We gave it 3 out of 4 stars at USA Today. And there's a lot of familiar faces in this one, voices, whether you're talking, of course, about Jackie Chan and Ice Cube, or Seth Rogen and John Cena, who play Bebop and Rocksteady. They voiced those characters. And I haven't said those names since I was trying to beat them in the Super Nintendo video game. That's how old I am. OG Super Nintendo kids. But we're hearing a lot of great things about this. Look, will it beat Barbie this weekend at the box office? Probably not, even though Barbie's been in theaters for a couple weeks now. But it's probably going to place at number 2 and do pretty well for itself.
All right, let's switch gears here. Coming off the heels of Shark Week, the sequel to this fan favorite, The Meg 2, The Trench, is out today. Tell us about this one.
All right, this is Jason Statham, and he's fighting prehistoric sharks, essentially. That's what's going on here. And look, it's summertime. You want to see a big action movie. This is, a lot of people love Jason Statham. Maybe if you're heading down the shore this weekend, this isn't the movie you want to check out in theaters. But otherwise, this might be right up your alley.
To be fair, there are no giant sharks at the Jersey Shore that we know about, at least.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah, right?
One of my all-time favorite shows, Heartstopper on Netflix. Now the second season is out. How are fans reacting to? It really is a Heartstopper, this one.
Yeah, it really is. And I think one of the things that fans love about this show, and what our TV critic loved about this season, is just how authentic it is as well. The highs and lows of a teen coming out story, and all of the, different nuances that come with that as well. But of course, based off of the novels and fans very, very excited. This one's streaming, of course, on Netflix.
Do you know, is Olivia Colman, she had small appearances in the first season. Is she back in the second season?
Yep.
That's awesome. I'd love to see that.
Amazing. Yeah. All right. Finally, there are 2 new competition reality shows out, right? Tell us about these.
Yeah, so there's the big Nailed It competition, so if you're familiar with Nailed It and baking, this is a spin-off of that, but it's amateurs. The big Nailed It Baking Challenge. And so, it's interesting. I spoke with Bobby Flay yesterday for a piece that's coming up in a few weeks at USA Today. And he was telling me how with these food shows, obviously it's TV, you want to entertain, but also, they are trying to educate a little bit as well. If you're watching this one, you might learn what not to do, but nonetheless, you'll learn something from the big Nailed It Baking Challenge also on Netflix.
I got to imagine the judges have to be very brave to be like, all right, let's see what this tastes like and if it's fully cooked.
Yeah. Absolutely. Was there another
marriage pact?
Marriage pact, yes.
So it's like the old adage: if we're still single when we're 40, we'll get married. They put that to the test with a number of couples. So that one will be very interesting as well. This one is streaming on Roku. So Love Is Blind fans, I think you'll also like this one. Love Is Blind, of course, also in the headlines this past week with one of the past contestants saying it ruined his life. Hopefully, no one's life is ruined here in Marriage Pact, but we'll get to watch it nonetheless.
No way. It didn't turn out well for you.
What could possibly go wrong in any of these shows?
Do you know? Sorry if you don't know the answer to this, but they know each other before, and they're like, "Oh, we weren't."
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't had a chance
like,
myself to stream it yet. But
they're like friends who are like, "Oh,
we're not married by the time we're 40."
That's kind of interesting. If they know each other before, maybe there's hope for that.
Yeah.
Right.
It happened to me with a prom date. We're like, well, if we don't have a date, we'll go to, and we went together. She's still a friend of mine. So
there you go.
But now you're married.
And you're not married.
You are married, not married.
Not to her.
Right, but to somebody else, I mean. That's what I mean.
It was my wife's birthday yesterday, by the way. Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. What's her name?
Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Happy birthday.
A different kind of marriage pact. All right.
Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.